Olivia, sorry, I did not want to go.
Just wanted to pin down some of the basics again on the exploding pages. I mean, is it still your position that you are not saying publicly who you believe carried out these attacks?
I don't have any comment on it at all.
And is there any reason that you wouldn't say what your assessment is of who carried these out?
I just don't have any comment on it at all.
Okay. 2 days ago, you said the US was not aware of this incident in advance. Is that statement still accurate?
The statement I made on 2 days ago was absolutely accurate.
That you didn't know about the incident in advance?
Correct.
Okay. Because, I mean, there has been some reporting that there was a call from the Israelis to say that something was going to happen in Lebanon on Tuesday. Do you have any comment on that report?
The statement I made on Tuesday was 100% accurate.
Okay. And just to follow up on the point about targeting and international humanitarian law, I mean, presumably the State Department is aware of the amended Protocol 2 of the Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons, which prohibits the use of booby traps or other devices in the form of harmless portable objects. Is that something you're taking into account when you're assessing and gathering information on this?
So we take into account all of the relevant provisions of international humanitarian law when it assesses, when we assess incidents of this type and other incidents throughout this conflict. I don't pronounce judgment on those from this podium, but those are the types of things that we look at. Yes, absolutely.
And given, I mean, just to reiterate the point, I mean, thousands of explosions, 2 children killed. You know, we've seen explosions in public places, in grocery stores, on the streets, healthcare workers among casualties. I mean, does that feel to you like a targeted attack that falls within the remit of international humanitarian law?
So I'm not going to talk about feelings here. We deal in factual assessments of law. Those are the type of assessments that we conduct over time, where we gather information and make those assessments based on the facts, based on the law. Those assessments are ongoing. It's not to speak to this incident or any specific incident, but those are things we take very seriously. Olivia.
Thank you. Just to actually follow up on what Tom was asking you, you did have a comment on the pager incidents earlier, which is to say that the U.S. is still gathering information. So to what end is it gathering information? Is it to arrive at public attribution for these incidents or not?
We continue to gather information for a number of different reasons. I'm not going to speak to them publicly.
Do you expect to arrive at public attribution for these incidents?
So I wouldn't want to prejudge today what steps we may or may not take in the future.
I mean, in the past, when there have been, call them covert operations, the U.S. has declined to comment until it became common knowledge what actually happened, which seems to be the trajectory here. So is there a reason why, at this stage, the U.S. is not willing or able to say what has happened in its view?
Only that I continue to gather information, but I don't have any comment. It's not to say we won't in the future, not to say that we will, but as of today, I don't have any comment on the incident.
Okay. Why is it too soon to tell whether or how these incidents may have affected ceasefire talks in Gaza? Have you not heard from other parties, whether Hamas, the Egyptians, or the Qataris, that it was at least counterproductive to the facilitation of these talks?
So I won't get into our private diplomatic conversations, but oftentimes when you have a big incident in the region, this has been true throughout these talks, it does take a few days for the proverbial dust to settle to see where things are going to shake out. So at this point, it would be speculation for me to try to judge how it will impact the talks, especially as you know, we've said this before, oftentimes communications with Hamas are difficult, they take time. It's just too early to be able to speculate about any kind of impact.
So you've heard no objections or complaints or reluctance from other parties to continue those conversations so long as what's happening in northern Israel and Lebanon is happening?
So when you say any parties, I'll talk about the mediators who we communicate with. No, there has been no reluctance to continue to work to try and get a ceasefire from any of the mediators that we're working with on this arrangement.
Okay, and the expectation that a bridging proposal may come, I mean, U.S. officials have been saying it could come sort of any day for the past several weeks. Is there any update to that timing?
I don't have a timetable to put on it, no.
Does the Israeli government agree with the U.S. that the only way to settle or to arrive at sort of a calmer situation in the north is by arriving at a ceasefire related to Gaza first?
So they should speak to that publicly, and I know that they have. I'm not going to speak on their behalf.
Well, is it based on?
I mean, you can look at their public statements. They have
Sure.
they have said many times that they could reach it through a diplomatic solution, military solution. But to elaborate on that, that's a question you should put to them.
Okay, but I mean, based on your conversations, diplomatic engagements with the Israelis, is it the U.S.'s view that that is how they are proceeding?
So I'm again not going to talk about their view. They have talked about this publicly, and at times you have heard various officials from the Israeli government come out and say that they prefer a diplomatic solution, but that they are ready for a military solution if they can't reach a diplomatic solution. I don't believe they've ever put a timetable, but they've said that publicly a number of times. They said it privately to us on a number of occasions too. I cannot speak for what decisions that they are going to make. Obviously, those are decisions that they will make, and they can speak to them. I can speak to what we have said to them, and it is what I have said to you and what the Secretary has said publicly and the President on down, that we continue to believe a diplomatic resolution is the best way to ensure both short-term peace and security for Israel and the tens of thousands of Israeli citizens that have been displaced, and also long-term stability.
A diplomatic resolution writ large. I'm asking specifically about the sequencing that a Gaza ceasefire must come first before anything can.
Oh, so the issue there is that you have heard the head of Hezbollah say quite publicly, as recently as today, that there will be no calm, there will be no cessation of the terrorist attacks against Israel until there is a ceasefire in Gaza. So it's not really an Israeli assessment. It is the fact that Hezbollah has made clear there won't be any end to the terrorist attacks against Israel until there's a ceasefire in Gaza.
Well, but it's the U.S. taking Hezbollah at its word at
its word and at the precedent of the last 11 months, right, where they've continued daily attacks.
Okay. Well,
so I will say other than when there was the week-long pause in hostilities last November. Other than that, they've continued near daily attacks, I should say.
Right, but as you've made the point before, public statements can be different from private assessments. So,
in this case, the public statements have matched the public actions. So,
one more question, sorry, about Iran and whether the U.S. has an understanding based on diplomatic, direct or indirect interactions, whether there is a heightened risk of retaliation from Iran, given its ambassador to Lebanon was injured as part of these incidents.
I wouldn't want to speculate on what actions Iran might take. We have always made clear to Iran throughout this conflict that it should not take any actions to escalate the conflict, and if it attacks Israel, we will defend Israel.
Do you think the U.S. has
one more? I really do have to go.
Sure, a clear understanding of what Iranians' intentions might be.
So it is always impossible to judge what a foreign country may or may not do. Leave it at that. Eva, go ahead.